We've all been there. You've been waiting for a game for 2 years. You check the Steam store page, scroll down to the System Requirements tab, and you see it. Recommended RTX 3060. You look at your own rig, you see an RTX 3060 and think, perfect, I'm good to go. You buy the game, hit play, but it's a disaster. Stuttering, 25 frames per second, and a mixed review score on day one. For years, the System Requirements box has been an unreliable part of PC gaming. It's a guess made by developers, often on clean test benches that don't look anything like your actual home PC. But this week, a massive discovery in the Steam client's code suggests that Valve has a solution in place for this problem. While most people are reporting on a new FPS tracker like it's just a cool little widget, the truth is much bigger. This is the final piece of a strategy Valve has been building for over a year. From the hardware details they added to reviews, to the GDC 2026 Steam Machine targets, and the new 4K UI refresh, Valve is transforming the PC guessing game into a more console-like experience. So let's look at what was actually found. On April 3rd, data miners discovered references to something called a frame estimator within the Steam client. Now, we've had an FPS counter in Steam for years. You turn it on in the settings and it shows a little green number in the corner, or even more details if you want. But that's not what this is. This new feature is a proactive, data-driven chart that appears on the Steam page before you even own a game. According to the leaked code, the workflow is ingenious. Steam asks for permission to collect anonymous performance data from players. It looks at their GPU, their CPU, their RAM, and the actual FPS they are getting in-game. It then aggregates the data from thousands of users and creates a real-world performance profile that you can view through a chart, which will be a great way for you to know if your specs are able to run a specific game. So we are moving away from what a developer recommends and thinks their game should run to what the game is actually doing on hardware just like yours. To understand why this is happening now, we have to look back at the Steam client update from March 9th, which you may remember from a previous video. The update officially added this new setting, added the option to provide anonymized framerate data. When enabled, Steam will collect gameplay framerate data stored without connection to your Steam account, but identified with the kind of hardware you are playing on. This data will help us learn about game compatibility and improve Steam. Now, at the time, Valve added a small disclaimer: this feature is currently in beta with a focus on devices running SteamOS. But don't let that SteamOS focus fool you into thinking this is just a small experiment for handhelds. By collecting FPS data and tying it to your specific hardware ID, Valve has spent the last month building an accurate performance database, essentially just building a large library of real-world benchmarks for these different games. In that same March update, they also added the ability to attach your hardware specs to user reviews. So are you starting to see the pattern? The review update gave us the subjective data, while the framerate toggle gives Valve the measurable data into how games are actually running. When you combine the two, you get the frame estimator we are seeing in the leaks today. Valve doesn't need to hire thousands of testers to benchmark every game on Steam. So to understand why Valve is doing this right now and why there is a focus on SteamOS devices, it all comes down to their hardware roadmap for the rest of 2026. At GDC last month, Valve finally laid out the ground rules for the new Steam machine. They officially introduced and explained the Steam Machine Verified program, and they set a very specific, interesting bar. For a game to be verified on the new Steam machine, it must maintain a stable 1080p at 30 frames per second. Valve said during the presentation, "Our goal is to bring the predictability of the console ecosystem to the open nature of the PC." But here's the problem: Valve can't manually test over 100,000 games for the Steam machine. It took them years just to get 25,000 games verified for the Steam Deck. So they needed a faster way to verify their entire library for this new console and for the upcoming Steam Frame VR headset. This frame estimator is the solution. It's an automated crowdsourced verification system. It's the ultimate Steam does nothing and wins move. The genius of the 1080p 30 FPS target is that it creates a universal baseline for PC gaming. Just think about it. When a developer builds for the PS5, they have a fixed target with that hardware. When they build for PC, they're just shooting in the dark. By defining exactly what performance means for the Steam Machine and the upcoming Steam Frame VR headset, Valve is essentially giving developers a rule set. But the real secret lies in the architecture. At GDC, Valve detailed Lepton, their new container for Android apps, and their heavy investment in FexEmu for ARM64 translation. The Steam Frame is an ARM-powered headset. This is why the FPS estimator is needed. Valve is using this crowdsourced telemetry to measure the performance tax of running x86 games on ARM hardware. They are building a system that tells them exactly how to improve in the future so your favorite titles originally built for a desktop run flawlessly on a mobile chip. It's the groundwork for a future where Steam is no longer tied to the processor in your PC. So this brings us to the visual side of things. Last week, Valve launched the public beta for the new Steam Store homepage. On the surface, it looks just like a nice coat of paint, higher resolution artwork, infinite scrolling, and a wider layout. But if you look closer at the store settings, you'll see that this UI is built specifically for high resolution displays. Valve mentioned in their update post, those of you with higher resolution monitors will notice the new store home is wider and more responsive. If you're viewing the store home on Steam Deck or in big picture mode, you'll also see these updates, which released along with some other betas right now. In fact, Valve pushed a brand new beta for the Steam Workshop, completely changing the browsing experience to be faster and more responsive. It's yet another piece of the puzzle, adding quick view features and a wider layout that, just like the store, is designed specifically to be Steam Deck and big picture friendly. So this frame estimator is adding on to tons of changes Valve is currently working on. But why it is so important for gamers is the accountability factor. In the current system, a developer can release a poorly optimized game, hide behind a recommended spec list, and hope that people don't refund within the 2-hour window. With the frame estimator, that changes completely. Imagine a game launches today. Within 3 hours, Steam has collected data from 10,000 players. If you go to that store page and the frame estimator shows a giant red bar saying average FPS 22 for your specs, are you really going to buy it? Most people probably wouldn't. This feature turns the Steam Store into a real benchmark tool. It forces accountability. Developers will no longer be able to say it runs fine on our machines because the store page itself will prove it actually doesn't run well. Valve is essentially weaponizing our hardware data to force the industry to care about optimization again. Between the GDC hardware targets, the data linked reviews from March, and this new FPS estimator, they are turning Steam into a platform where performance is a transparent, predictable metric. If you are a Steam Deck owner, a future Steam Machine buyer, or just someone tired of wasting $70 on a game that runs like a slideshow, this is the most important update Valve has pushed in a very long time. But I want to hear from you. What do you think of the frame estimator?